respected brothers and my respected sisters. Many of us, alhamdulillah, over the last week or two have returned back to our work. Youngsters, after receiving the results of their GCSEs and A-levels and so on, have returned back to a mode of education after somewhat 6 weeks of rest, spending time with family and loved ones. An important question arises that success is something that we all aspire and we all want. But sometimes we only limit our success to certain things. Many a times, success is only aligned to worldly pursuits. When a youngster receives the results of GCSEs and A-levels, and many youngsters receive and others receive their results of their university studies, though these are very looked up to aspirations, this is something which I mentioned is fardul kifaya. Those education, that education which we require in the ummah as a necessity, is a necessity upon the entire ummah and the entire community. And of course, when our children, our youngsters, and we ourselves do well in our education, then this is a moment of happiness and joy. A father will honor their child when they do well in their education, and rightly so. When our children and our youngsters, and in today's climate, even those who later on as mature students receive good qualifications, it is a moment of honor and happiness. But is this the only happiness that we're after? Will this allow us to attain the rahmah of Allah? Will this allow us to achieve everything that we want to do in this life? And this is where we need to really rethink our approach of what is happiness and what brings happiness. If a child earns haram, so they get a good qualification, whatever that qualification is, and they go out and they earn haram, they don't bother where their income comes from. They don't care where it comes from. And then they come home and put it on the table in front of the parents. This creates joy in the hearts of parents that, mashallah, my child is earning and they're supporting us and bringing money and bread to the table. However, if the father and the parents are fully aware that this income is haram, it's come from drug dealing, it's come from interest-bearing transactions, from deception, from harassment, from deceit, then they too will be embroiled in that haram in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They may take this money, they might buy a car, they might pay the mortgage off, they may feel very proud, they talk to other parents, mashallah, my child earns, but deep in their hearts, if they have any feeling that this income is haram, in the eyes of Allah, they too will be accountable. Just the way the child goes and deceives people, harasses people, burgles people, and brings this money in his possession and brings it to the parent, and the parent does not ask a question, then in the eyes of Allah, these parents will also be brought accountable and will be the same way guilty as their child. Many a times we see this. Many a times we see youngsters bringing money to the table, something that person earns an entire month, this person is earning 1 week. The parents must think, mashallah, what an excellent job, highly likely it could be. But the majority of the times that's not the case. This youngster doesn't have much qualification. This youngster doesn't have much of a working background. This youngster is hanging around with the wrong people. So these should be alarm bells which we are all considering. And today, brothers and sisters, we feel that success only lies with monetary outcomes. But we have to remember that at the end of the day, just the way everybody will perish, just the way everybody will die, we too will go. And on the day of judgment, as Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah mentions, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not allow an individual to move from their spot. لا تزال قدم عبد حتى يسأل عن أربع. That a person cannot move from their spot until Allah asks them 4 questions. And amongst those questions is al-malihi min ayna kasabahu wa fima anfaqa. Where did you get your income from? Where did you earn it from? And where did you spend it? So these are some realistic considerations to have. So having a good degree, having a good qualification, having good income is valuable. But the center of all of this is our connection with Allah Jalla wa Ala. If a person gets an excellent result at university with high marks, but at the same time they spend 3 to 4 years at university, or be that college or school, and a person works hard, achieves high, but at the same time they have rarely missed their salah, they have rarely touched haram, they have kept themselves under control, then this person is nurun ala nur, the one who is successful. As for that person who also gets a high qualification, but does not pray their salah punctually, dabbles in haram and mashbu and doubtful things, then this person is not successful. However, they have not succeeded in any way or form. And in the eyes of people, in the eyes of you and I, this person may seem successful. But brothers and sisters, this success is short-lived. This success is short-lived. And inshallah, I'll share some examples with you if time allows. The Prophet ﷺ, many a times he would be asked, Ya Rasulullah, advices of what is success? Where is success? The Prophet ﷺ would respond, and if we open the books of Hadith, we will find various responses have been given to various situations. For example, the Prophet ﷺ would say that whosoever remains silent, that person is successful. Man samata najah. That whoever has remained silent, that person is successful. Another person comes and asks that whoever persists the masjid is successful. Another person comes and asks that what is success? He says the one who holds onto their tongue, cries over their tears, and remains within the home is successful. Furthermore, we learn the Prophet ﷺ advocates that there are 10 qualities. If a person has those qualities amongst the believers, then know that they are successful. In a very famous hadith, narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he says that the Prophet ﷺ received revelation. And the Sahaba radiyallahu anhu majma'een, they would be able to tell when the Prophet ﷺ is receiving revelation. For example, it would be as though the murmuring or the buzzing of bees, the sound of buzzing of bees would seem to come in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or in some scenarios, they would see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is concentrating and sweat like pearls upon his forehead sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Jibreel would bring revelation. So Umar radiallahu anhu says the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was receiving revelation as narrated by Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah, and he said that, Ya Allah, enable us to embrace this and do not withhold this from us. Keep this within us. Umar radiallahu anhu, he says that I asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, what were you referring to? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah has revealed to me 10 verses. But whosoever is able to embrace and hold these 10 verses will achieve the honor of entering into the gardens of paradise, into Jannah. And what are those verses, inshallah, which we will look on and quickly elaborate over the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes. So these are the verses of Surah Al-Mu'minun. So even earlier, the Prophet ﷺ said, indicates that there are 10 verses, that if a person has those qualities, then know that they are successful. So these are the categorization. These are the categorization set by Allah Jalla wa Ala through His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Number 1, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The successful, who are those successful? And the word aflah, what does that mean? In another verse we learn, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. The word aflah refers to the growing of the soul. In the other surah, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. That whosoever allows, whoever is successful to grow their ruh, their spirit, they are the ones who are successful. And whoever stamps upon their ruh, then they are the ones who are not successful. So this is about spiritual growth, connecting with Allah. And remember, in today's world, there are various modes of spirituality, of spiritual well-being, of this feeling of some spirituality. In Islam, there is no spirituality without being a mu'min. This is the categorization of the Quran. Number one is Tawheed. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, successful are those who are believers, who believe in the oneness of Allah, of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, but man qala La ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. Whosoever has said La ilaha illallah, they are the ones who will enter into Jannah. This is why the belief of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah is this. And however a bad person may be, whatever, even though they may do every wrong in the book, yes, Allah will enter them into Jahannam first. But a time will come that Allah will take them out of Jahannam and enter them into the gardens of paradise. Why? Because of Iman. Iman is the fundamental point of our being in this dunya. Secondly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. And I mentioned that الَّذِينَ here is linked to aflah. So الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. That the believers are those. Who are those successful ones? They're number one, they are believers. Number two, they are the ones who not just pray their salah. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not saying about qiyam as-salah. He's not saying that they're ones who pray their salah. No, Allah says, الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. They are the ones that when they pray, their mind, their soul, their body, everything is devoted to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why the ulama of tazkiyah, they state that when a person prays their salah, it is not about the physical position of standing in salah. The munafiqun would do this. وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالَى يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. The munafiqun of Medina, and even today the munafiqun, they stand for salah. What's the difference of the salah of the munafiqun and the mu'minun? The difference is khushu wal khudu fi salah. Is that devotion in salah. So, what is that devotion in salah? Our mental position. How many of us pray our salah? How many of us regularly pray our salah, but we don't find this impact in our salah? Because why? It becomes pirate fashion. Ruku, sujood, qiyam, salam, and off we go. But rather praying our salah, as the Quran says, with devotion is what is expected. I'll mention to you two ahadith. Before I mention the hadith to you, the ulama of tazkiyah mentioned that when a person prays their salah, they stand with full intention that I am praying my salah to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, facing towards the qibla. And thereafter a person thinks to themselves in their mind, and we have to create these mental positions so that we can engross ourselves in salah. So we put this thing in our mind that I am standing in the courtyard of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am standing upon Pul Sirat. I am standing upon the bridge below under which is the fire of Jahannam, ahead of which is success of Jannah. And I am standing in the courtyard of Allah. That's just a simile. That you think this is your mentality to bring this devotion in your salah. Ultimately, to bring you to the state أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه كأنه يراك. That you become such mentally that as though you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you can't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at least this much in your mind that Allah can at least see you. For example, the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, it is very famous about the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. That it is mentioned about one Sahabi that he was praying salah, and his house was set alight in fire. But he was not able to comprehend that the fire was going on because he was so devoted in his salah. In another scenario, an individual is praying their salah. The child is lying down beside them. A snake comes out towards the child. But they are so engrossed in their salah that they cannot understand and cannot see that the snake is coming towards their child until a third person comes and moves the child away. That's another situation. A person is praying their salah in such devotion, and you mentioned about the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum, that they were like sticks stuck to the ground. Crows would sit on their shoulders and they would be devoted in their salah. Such was the salah of the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. Once a noble companion, he came to the masjid and he prayed his salah. And many of us, the way we pray our salah, Allahu Akbar, leaving. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam summoned him back. And what did he say to him? Irji' fasalli fa innaka lam tusalli. Go back and repeat your salah. You haven't prayed salah. Go back and pray your salah. You have not prayed your salah. I ask you, brothers and sisters, isn't my salah and your salah like this? Like the pecking of the bird or the chicken on the ground trying to get its food and then moving on? We learn in the narrations that once a companion came to the masjid and he was praying his salah, but he was playing around with his lihya, with his beard. The Prophet ﷺ said that if his heart was devoted in his salah, then his body would also be devoted in his salah. If his heart was devoted in his salah, then his body would also be devoted in his salah. So what we learn from this, my brothers and sisters, is that devotion in salah is a category, a position that we need to get to. When we get to that position, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enable us to really feel the beauty of the salah that we need to be experiencing. Much could be said. Even the adhkar ba'da salah. The adhkar ba'da salah. Many of us, we live in a busy world. Of course we do. But we learn in the narrations of staying behind after salah and praying our tasbihat. 33 times subhanallah, 33 times alhamdulillah, 34 times Allahu Akbar, reciting Allahumma anta as-salam wa minka as-salam, and the du'as of which are masnoon. These are the practices of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We also learn that the du'a that is made after Salatul Maktuba, after farad prayers, are accepted. Now, how many times do we do this? These are questions I ask myself and to yourself. Is my salah parrot passion? Or is my salah, as the Quran categorizes, that one of the definitions or the second category of the successful individual is he or she who prays their salah with devotion? Time is short, but I want to mention furthermore. Many brothers and sisters complain. But the Quran says that pray your salah and Allah will protect you from munkar wal fahsh. That Allah will protect us from evil and sin. How comes I pray my salah, but I'm still involved in sin? The question I ask is not about you praying your salah physically. Are you in your salah mentally? Are you in your salah mentally? This is the question that we need to be asking ourselves. Furthermore, the Quran then further says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. That amongst the signs of success of the believers who are devoted in their salah, and وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ, and they keep away from lagh. What does lagh mean? Lagh means pastime, futile pastime. Now I'd like to define this furthermore, and you'll be able to understand it in today's context. The Quran, when it talks about passing time in the dunya, futile waste of time sometimes, it talks about la'ib, it talks about lagh, and it talks about lagh. So here Allah subhanahu, I'm not going to define each one at the moment, but lagh refers to futile pastime. Things that we do that has no productivity. Many examples could be used. I use the example of social media. Now, social media is double-sorted. You can spend time on social media for many, many productive things. But you can also spend hours on social media, hours, being completely unproductive. Ask yourself this question, forget everybody else. Sometime after a long day at work, a long day at home, or wherever we have been, we'll go home, we'll get a cup of tea, and we'll couch on the sofa, or we'll sit down, put our feet up, and we'll start to browse TikTok, Facebook. We'll start with Facebook, and we'll start to go through the various things that are happening on there, and then we'll slowly end up in TikTok, and then slowly we're on to Snapchat, and for a few moments we're on to Instagram. Allahu Akbar, 1.5 hours have just gone like this. True? I don't see the lot of heads. Yes or no? Do you see this? This is true. I have seen it myself. Sometimes I'll be sitting there and, okay, let's have a look at this. You start with a good intention. Allahu Akbar. You end up spending an hour and a half. And then we ask the question, I don't have the time to read the Quran. I don't have the time to spend with my kids. Many a times, marriages are breaking up, brothers and sisters. Many a times, marriages are breaking up. Just the other day, somebody contacted me. The Sheikh, I've just got married. I've just got married. These are our first week or 2 weeks. And we're not giving each other time. Allahu Akbar, why are you not giving each other time? Because she's busy on her Facebook and I'm busy with mine. We're doing our things. The husband is complaining about the wife and the wife is complaining about the husband. All of this, why? Because we've forgotten the priorities of where we need to be committing ourselves, where we need to be spending that useful time. So the Quran says the believers are those people who don't embroil themselves in futile pastime. Many other activities, time is short. Many other activities, you have to ask yourself this question as a Muslim, as a mu'min. You have to ask yourself this question, is whatever I am doing, religious or social, how am I being productive? How am I being productive? Everybody complains. Everybody complains. We don't have time. We're so busy. Families complain. Just the other day, Allahu Akbar, it's sad to see the negative impact of social media. Just the other day, we were sitting in our classes, a youngster, maybe 12 years old. So I said to him, MashaAllah, you're doing well. We told your mom and dad about this. And you know what he said to me? Allahu Akbar, this is what we're living. We have to wake up, brothers and sisters. And for those of us who have children, we really need to wake up. Because we are losing an entire generation through our fingers. He said to me, oh, forget my dad. I never see him. Forget my dad, I never see him. So I said to him, what do you mean you never see him? He goes, well, I go to school, he's not around. I come back home, he's not around. In the weekends, he's not around. So I then wanted to explore what his father was doing, out of interest. So I can pick this conversation up. Allahu Akbar. The father is busy lobbying in the community for political gains while he's losing his children, who are telling these teachers that we don't see our father. We don't see our parents around, more specifically the father. MashaAllah, the mothers are more persistent. They bore them for 9 months. They're spending time with them. So why is it that the fathers are not spending their time? And then we complain. Then the daughter hits 18. The son hits 22. We want to get them married to a relative. We want to get them married to a certain a certain position that we want to see in our community. And then they say, I'm not listening to you. What should I listen to you for? Many times. Even just recent, parents saying, Sheikh, make dua, I'm trying to get my children married. They're not listening. So why are they not listening? Oh, we want to get them married to a good family, a good spouse, a good relationship, and every time we put something forward to them, they just don't want to they don't want to get involved. So I asked the question, so when they were 5, when they were 6, when they were 7, when they were 10, 11 and 12, 13, 15, 18, 19, were you around? Oh, Sheikh, I was so busy. Somebody has to pay the bills. I said, this is the casualty. This is the casualty. Many of us, and I address myself, we are so busy on social media in the pomp and the show that we want to attain glory. How many likes have we got? How many views have we got? Whilst we are losing our own through our fingers. This is the points of love that we find in social media. Much more could be said. I address brothers, as you are predominantly here. But rethink your strategic positioning. Rethink. If you have children, rethink. If you have spouses, rethink. If you have work, if you have family commitments, rethink. And rethink that what am I investing my time in that is productive versus what am I doing that is unproductive. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the words of His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the wahi through Jibreel, tells us that the successful are those who are believers, who are engrossed in their salah, and who do not occupy themselves in pastime. So much more could be said, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala carries on to say, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. And all of these ayat, inshallah, over the next week as well, I will touch on these points. But another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that we are the ones who give in charity. The believers are the ones who give in charity. What is meant by charity? is charity. Of course, here refers to specifically zakat, but more so about general charity. The Prophet ﷺ, he lived by example. He lived by example, brothers and sisters. And for the believers, for the mu'mineen, there is no role model. The only role model is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. People will come and go. Generations will come and go. People of power will come and go. But for the believers, our role model is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And when we look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I'm not asking brothers and sisters to give everything in charity. I refer to you about the attitude of charity. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his attitude of charity was that he would always give to somebody else without worrying about himself. So the learning we find of charity is لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. And none of you, look at the wording of the Quran, and none of you can achieve this celestial position of piety. Look at what the Quran says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ. You will never achieve the position of piety حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, until you spend that which you love. Now, ask yourself this question. You might find yourself in a situation here in the masjid or elsewhere. You are asked and called upon for charity. We'll put our hands in our pockets. We'll miss the notes and we'll take out the coppers. And we'll throw that copper into the box and say, I've given my charity. I ask you, brothers and sisters, is that fulfilling this verse of the Quran? Or is that charity that I have that 20-pound note in my pocket? When I take it out, I'll feel it going into the box. It'll hit me a little bit because it takes a lot of time to earn that 20 pounds. But given that in charity, in comparison to that penny, is more honorable in the sight of Allah. Why? Because that pound, that 20 pound means more to you. Of course, that doesn't mean that we struggle, we can't pay our bills, and we give everything in charity. No. But my point is that our attitude to charity, we give that which we love. This is what Allah Jalla wa Ala loves the most. Look at the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. Time is short. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiyallahu anh, when he would receive a caravan from outside of Madinatul Munawwara, from Sham and other places, the valley and the road would be filled with the caravans of Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiyallahu anh. Just to explain to you furthermore, many of us may not have this wealth, and mashallah, some of you do have this wealth. Imagine a whole road full of lorries, and each lorry has thousands and thousands of pounds of commodity in it. And these lorries, let's say there's 50 lorries, and they've all come into your possession, and you are the malik and the owner of all of this. This was the approach by Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiyallahu anh. But what was his approach? When he would hear the verses like لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, he would come to the blessed company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and would say, Ya Rasulullah, Abdul Rahman does not need this. Of course he needed it. He could take all of this 50 and convert it into 250. But no, because of his loyalty to Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, being ever ready to give in charity, he would come and say, Ya Rasulullah, everything that you see, Ya Rasulullah, everything is sacrifice. This was the connection that they had. But how did this connection come? It's because they embodied some of these characteristics of the believers. I pray to Allah Jalla wa Ala, inshallah we will carry on to learn about this, but I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, really may He enable us to embody these teachings of the Quran. May He make us individuals like the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. Even though we might not be able to be 100%, even if we were 10%, we will see serenity, peace and itmi'nan in our communities, in our families and in ourselves. Wa sallallahu wa sallama ala abdihi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب